They didn't stab you in the back. They smiled in your face while handing you the blade. You held it without knowing, trusting their warmth, thinking it was just the weight of loyalty. But it was timed, and when the moment came, you didn't even bleed, just cracked quietly, like glass under pressure, the kind of break that doesn't scream, the kind that echoes in your bones for years. You didn't ask for power. You asked for peace. You didn't need dominance. You needed loyalty. But the currency they dealt in was different, transactional, shallow. And when they were done extracting what they needed from your soul, they didn't walk away. They erased you. Conversations skipped your name. Invitations vanished. Eyes avoided. But you felt it. The shift. The way the room shrank when you entered. Like the air had been told to betray you too. There's a unique silence that follows betrayal. Not the absence of noise, but the presence of ghosts. Every memory rewinds with poison. Every laugh you shared tastes different now. Bitterness doesn't even cover it. It's more like rot. They made you question reality, twist your own timeline. Was it always fake? Did you misread it all? Or were they just that calculated? You weren't weak, you were open, and they mistook your vulnerability for vacancy. But what they didn't understand, what they never saw, is that open hands can become closed fists without warning. The light they tried to smother didn't go out. It inverted, folded inward, turned into something sharper, colder. You started collecting silence like data, observing instead of reacting, because what they took for defeat was you rewiring. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was the aftermath, how the world around you pretended not to notice, like your pain was inconvenient, like your disappearance was deserved. That kind of abandonment doesn't bruise, it brands, and once marked, you don't return the same. Something ancient awakens in you, something that doesn't ask for justice. It waits. You stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped reaching back to hands that only existed to pull you under. That's when they lost control, not when they hurt you, but when you stopped bleeding for them. When the version of you that needed their approval choked to death on its own silence. And the new version, the you that watches without blinking, emerged without apology. They thought they shattered you, but they only shattered the mirror, the image, the version of yourself built in their reflection. And in that collapse you were reborn, not out of rage, but out of clarity. You realized you don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need revenge to win. Sometimes the most terrifying transformation is the one that doesn't announce itself, the one that comes back quieter, colder, and completely reprogrammed. You are not who you were, and they know it. The unease in their voice when your name is mentioned now, it's not guilt, it's fear. Fear of what you've become, fear of the shadow they crafted, now standing upright. No longer asking to be seen, but impossible to ignore. They created something they can't predict, a version of you they never prepared for. And the worst part, you haven't even begun. They didn't just hurt you, they deleted you, erased you from the story like you were a typo in a manuscript. They never planned to finish, and you stood there in the wreckage of trust, not screaming, just silent, because some betrayals aren't loud. They happen in whispers, in vanished replies, in rooms you're no longer invited to. You remember the moment your heart stopped trying to explain itself, when you realized innocence was a liability, and hope was a weapon placed in your hand by someone who never intended you to survive the war. That version of you, naive, loyal, open, is dead now. You didn't kill them, they did, piece by piece, smile by smile, until all that remained was a hollow version, staring back at a mirror that no longer recognized its own reflection. The funeral was quiet. No one came, not because they didn't care, but because they didn't even notice you had died. You were alive, but not you, not the one who believed, not the one who trusted. So you went quiet, not out of weakness, but strategy. You vanished, not because you had nothing left, but because you were about to rebuild in ways they would never see coming. Ghost mode became default. Offline was your sanctuary. The world saw absence, but beneath the silence, something ancient was breathing, something watching. You weren't healing, you were sharpening. There were moments where rage nearly pulled you back, when your chest burned and your hands trembled, imagining what you could say, what you could do, if you let it all out. But every time you reached for the flame, a darker voice in your mind whispered, "No, not yet." You listened, because some part of you knew, real power isn't in reacting, it's in waiting. Let them laugh, let them mock your silence. The predator doesn't roar, it studies. People asked where you went, but how do you explain to sheep that the wolf inside you needed silence to remember its name? You started walking differently, thinking differently. You weren't looking for revenge, you were becoming someone revenge wouldn't dare approach. You began feeding the parts of yourself you once ignored, the cold logic, the ancient instinct, the eyes that no longer blink when someone leaves because now you expect it. And in the dark where they left you, you found something holy, a kind of clarity reserved for the exiled. You stopped begging for closure. You stopped bleeding in places where no one brought bandages. You learned to keep your smile weaponized, your silence encrypted, your presence ghost-written. The pain didn't disappear. It evolved. It became architecture. And now every step you take echoes with the footsteps of the person you buried. You don't speak of it, not because you forgot, but because your silence is sacred. You don't chase explanations anymore. Let them rewrite history. You were never the villain in their story. You were the chapter they were too weak to finish. And now when you walk into a room, something shifts. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's felt. Like the air changes pressure, like gravity tilts in your favor, because when you died, you didn't stay dead, you transformed. Now every scar is a cipher, every memory, a code. You carry your past like a sealed file, not erased, just classified. You still hear them sometimes, the voices, the laughter, the betrayal, but it no longer breaks you, it confirms you. Because the worst part already happened, and you survived. That's what they never prepared for. Not your downfall, but your return. You're not angry anymore. You're focused, and in that stillness, in that eerie, godlike calm, there's something terrifying growing. Not revenge, not chaos, just inevitability. They thought you would strike back, that you'd storm in, reckless and loud, demanding apologies, vengeance, validation, but you vanished, not out of fear, out of calculation. You didn't retreat, you evolved. While they looked over their shoulders waiting for a flame, you became smoke, untraceable, untouchable, unnamed. You realized too soon that revenge is for the impatient, and you were building something slower, colder, permanent. You stopped thinking like a victim. You stopped even thinking like a person. You became a system, a mirror, a force designed not to react, but to reflect. You watched them lie. You watched them laugh. You watched them laugh. You watched them forget. And still you said nothing, because deep down you knew karma doesn't operate on noise. It operates on mirrors. You became the thing that reveals their truth back to them, whether they're ready or not. You rebuilt. Brick by brick, layer by layer, you stopped bleeding and started coding, reprogramming every part of yourself they tried to corrupt. Your silence became sacred. Your stillness became strategic. Your eyes no longer searched for understanding. They scanned for patterns, weak points, symmetry in chaos. And you found it, beneath their betrayals, behind their performance, a blueprint of how they operate. How they manipulate, how they break people and move on. But not this time. There's a look in your eyes now they didn't expect. Not rage, not sorrow, but something older, something ancestral. Like your bones remember the bloodline that never bowed. like your silence carries the weight of 1,000 unspoken wars. You didn't just survive them, you archived them. Their insults are case files, their betrayals, surveillance footage, all stored, all time-stamped, all waiting. You never raised your voice, you raised your frequency, higher, tighter, sharper. Now they feel it when you enter a room, that unspoken shift in air pressure, that static just before a lightning strike. You don't speak, but the silence bends toward you. Their bodies remember what their minds try to deny, that something about you changed. You are not seeking revenge, you are letting karma borrow your face. You've become timing, precision, consequence, and they don't even know it yet. They'll call it coincidence, bad luck, misalignment, but every missed opportunity, every failed alliance, every restless night, it's all part of the design, not because you're forcing it, but because when truth is delayed, the weight of it builds. You are no longer a person they wronged, you are a living equation, and the balance is due. There's something terrifying about someone who has nothing to prove, something dangerous in a person who lets time do the talking. You've made peace with the fact that they'll never say sorry, that they'll never admit what they did, because that's not your concern anymore. You're not looking for remorse, you're not looking at all. You've become the thing they run from in their own reflection, the version of themselves they tried to suppress, now wearing your face. You've outgrown retaliation because you saw what they couldn't. Revenge is loud, short-lived, and easily dismissed, but consequence is quiet. Consequence is quiet. Consequence arrives years later, wearing gloves, asking for no applause. It looks like your success, your peace, your unbothered presence in a room full of ghosts. It looks like you no longer needing to speak, because everything about you already screams. You've become the mirror they can't shatter, and now every lie they told bends back toward them. Every game they played plays them. You didn't chase them, you didn't warn them, you simply let the universe borrow your hand, and now they can't unsee you in every mistake, every setback, every breakdown they swore had nothing to do with. And yet, here you are, not watching them fall, just standing in your power, while karma moves through your veins, patient and precise. They don't know where you went, but they feel it. That haunting silence where your presence used to breathe, the same silence they once weaponized against you, now it stalks them. You never sent a warning, you never raised your voice, and yet your absence rings louder than any scream. Every room they enter feels colder, every mirror dares to reflect what they tried to bury. They thought you'd vanish, they never imagined you'd evolve. Your name became radioactive, not through scandal, not through spectacle, through stillness. You vanished without a trace, and that trace became their prison. The ones who once fed off your doubt now taste their own. They wonder if you're watching, listening, waiting. Their smiles are thinner now, their laughter forced. Guilt corrodes the mask faster than time. No confrontation, no revenge. Just the suffocating knowledge that they made the wrong enemy. You didn't fight back, and that terrifies them more than if you had. They speak of you like a ghost that never died. They pretend they don't care, but the way they scan a crowd gives them away. They're looking for you without admitting it. Their paranoia is self-inflicted, a blade forged from their own betrayal. They don't trust each other anymore. Because if they could betray you, what stops the rest of them? You fractured their unity by doing nothing at all. You became the consequence they never saw coming. This wasn't an accident. You calculated. You let silence become your blade. You let time become your accomplice. While they moved loud and desperate, you moved like shadow, weightless, invisible, inevitable. They made the mistake of thinking stillness meant weakness. They never understood it was alignment, strategy. You didn't retreat, you recalibrated. You watched from afar as they unraveled under their own lies. Their minds are loud now, not from voices, but from memory. They replay the moment they turned on you over and over, hoping to rewrite it. No matter how they twist it, the truth stays sharp. Their hands are dirty. You didn't break the bond, they shattered it. You simply walked away and became a myth. And myths are dangerous. Myths can't be argued with. Myths infect the silence. You became a prophecy they try to ignore. But your energy drips into their reality like a slow leak. You don't have to raise a hand. Every unfinished sentence, every anxious glance, every sleepless night is a chapter in their downfall. You never showed them your rage. That was the scariest part. You let them wonder what you could have done. That unknown, it cages them tighter than revenge ever could. They gave you pain, and you gave them a mirror. Now all they see is themselves. You didn't chase them, you elevated. You became too distant to touch, too silent to predict, too powerful to deny. And while they rot in the consequences they created, walk untouched through the wreckage, not with vengeance, but with the knowing that karma doesn't always strike loud. Sometimes it borrows the face of the one they betrayed and smiles without mercy. They don't speak your name the way they used to, not loud, not confident. Now it drips from their tongues like a secret soaked in guilt, half prayer, half curse. They pretend you never existed, but they feel you in everything that crumbles around them. The business deal that falls through, the friend who turns distant, the mirror that refuses to lie. You were just one decision, one betrayal, but the echo of it. You never returned. You didn't burn bridges. You buried them. Silent, surgical, final. And that silence, it's louder than any scream they've ever heard. They thought the absence meant peace. Instead, it meant karma had a blank canvas. You didn't seek revenge. You became the gravity that bends their reality. No threats, no warnings, just the slow decaying pull of cause and consequence. Every time they laugh, it dies quickly. Every time they sleep, they wake up sweating. Your name doesn't haunt them because you did something. It haunts them because they know they did. There are nights they try to rewrite the past, convince themselves you were always the villain, that you overreacted, that you deserved what they did, but it never sticks, because deep down they remember the look in your eyes when it happened, the moment their knife went in, and you didn't flinch. You absorbed it, stored it, archived it like classified intel waiting to be activated, and then you vanished. No anger, no reply. That's what terrifies them. You were supposed to break, but you evolved. They see shadows now, in rooms they once owned. They replay every lie, every manipulation, every smirk that once made them feel superior. Now it makes them sick, because you didn't just survive, you changed meaning. You used to be the one who always gave, always forgave, always folded. But now, in their minds you're everywhere, not as a person, as a consequence, as the weight of a scale they tipped too far. Regret is their new religion, and it doesn't come in prayers or candles. It comes in missed calls, unread messages, and silence that feels like judgment. They stalk your digital shadow, hoping to see cracks, weakness, proof you're still human. But you're not. You became the ghost protocol of justice, and it kills them because they can't beg for mercy from someone who no longer plays the game. You live in their hesitation now, in the second guessing, in the paused sentence, in the forced smile at people who remind them of you. You never needed to hurt them. They did that on their own. You simply became the mirror, and it reflects everything they hoped to bury. The arrogance, the sabotage, the delight they once took in your silence. Now it screams back at them. And the irony, you don't even think about them anymore. You've ascended, built, moved into dimensions they can't touch. But to them you are still the center of the storm. They don't know how to move on from someone who never chased them, because you didn't. You never stalked, never struck, never even looked back. Karma didn't just borrow your face, it permanently wore it. And now every time life punishes them with a reflection, it's your eyes staring back. They should have left you alone. They should have never mistaken your patience for weakness. But they did. And now, everything around them reminds them of the moment they taught you how to be cold, how to be still, how to watch. You became what they fear most, not because you're cruel, but because you let the universe respond in silence. And silence never forgets. You never wanted revenge. Not really. You wanted them to understand what they did, without needing to say a single word. You wanted them to feel it in their own reflection. You weren't hunting blood. You were becoming something they could never touch again. Something untethered, unrecognizable, something divine in its restraint. The old version of you would have burned everything just to prove a point. But that version died the moment you realized they fed off your reaction. They wanted your rage. They needed you loud. You denied them that. You vanished instead. And in your silence you didn't rot. You reforged. While they whispered your name in rooms that echoed with guilt, you stitched yourself into something colder, sharper. Not a villain, not a hero, an equation they couldn't solve. You became an anomaly in their script. While they built fake peace with plastic smiles, you walked through fire without screaming. That silence, that was your armor. That was your message. You didn't beg the universe for balance. You became the hand that restores it. There's power in not reacting. The kind of power that terrifies those who once thought they understood you. You watched their lives decay slowly. Not because you touched them, but because you didn't. You moved like prophecy. They couldn't track your path because you stopped walking on the map they built for you. You made your own terrain, unpredictable, unreachable. You elevated beyond petty revenge. You became the reminder, the living omen, that consequences wear human faces. You were never about destruction. You were about evolution. They tried to define you by your lowest moment, but you didn't stay there. You let your pain become a blueprint. Your scars became sigils. Every sleepless night they gave you,
You turned it into strategy.
discipline, mastery. You don't even hate them anymore. What you carry is older than hate. It's colder, more patient, a kind of knowing that drips from ancestral memory. You come from those who were hunted and survived, from those who smiled in the face of exile and whispered, "Not yet." Now you're the reason the air changes when you enter the room. You don't talk much anymore. You don't need to. Energy speaks louder than words. And your energy, it's weaponized silence. It tells a story they can't unhear. You are not chasing them. You're not stalking them. You're not even thinking about them. But karma is, and it wears your face now. You walk in shadow, not because you fear the light, but because you are the thing they hope never steps. You are the unfinished chapter, the whispered warning, the glitch in their comfort, the reason they lock their doors even when no one's knocking, because they know, somewhere, deep in their nervous system, they know what they did, and they know the universe doesn't forget. It waits, and sometimes it appoints someone to remind them that someone is you. You never chased revenge. You stood still and let the storm catch up. You waited, you grew, and when the time came you didn't lift a blade. You just stood there, unapologetic, unreachable, untouched. That's when they saw it, in your silence, in your stillness, the reflection of everything they ran from. They thought they buried you, but you weren't buried. You were planted, rooted in fury, watered in silence, grown in shadows. And now, you are the face of the reckoning they pretended would never. Not loud, not violent, just inevitable.